KNUST-TEK TV. Experience educational television.
The College of Humanities and Social Science of KNUST hosted Ramapo College of New Jersey at a program dubbed the African American Relation with Ghana Leadership Conference on Tuesday, 19th March 2019. The conference was divided into two main themes. The first speaker, Dr. Carl Johnson, spoke on the theme African Diaspora and Culture, Slavery, the Diaspora, and How It Built America.
As far as I know, my family has been in America for over 200 years. And the reason why I can't go further back is that many people that were enslaved did not receive proper burials. And you see how important a burial is in Ghana, right? You have to venerate your ancestors. So that's what happened to the slaves. They would not even receive a proper burial. And many times they would be buried in unmarked graves. See, slavery in America was intergenerational and much more harsher and harder to get out of. It was industrial, labor-intensive, and it was difficult for anyone to come out from it unharmed physically and mainly psychologically. And that connects to the denial of even being African, right? In America, we have what was called chattel slavery. That means that you become non-human. You become property, intergenerationally. You're no longer looked as human. So, I mean, that's one of the key features of chattel slavery. And unlike in the old world, where there was warfare and slavery, because slavery is the big, ugly brother of warfare, right? It happened all around the world, and since all humans left Africa. And whenever they started warfare, slavery has always been around, as far as we know, all right?
Dr. Deidra Foreman presented on post-reconstruction of civil rights.
For a brief period in history, the idea of freedom and equality amongst the races in American society was thought to be within reach. However, certain historical events would dismantle and destroy any attempts to equalize America for a span of almost 100 years. During the Civil War between the North and South, President Abraham Lincoln signed what was called the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. This declared that Africans in America, the former slaves, in some southern states, also known as Confederate states, were free. As a result, millions of Africans spoke with their feet and left the southern plantations to join the Union Army to fight in the Civil War for freedom. This war was a fight for freedom in a land that had been founded on the idea that Black Africans were of an inferior race, and their sole purpose was to provide free labor for European colonists who had settled there.
Dr. Peter Campbell gave a presentation on Black American theater.
Black American theater is unique in the conditions of its origins, as Black Africans were the only minority group to be brought to America forcibly and lived under slavery until 1863. Thus, the particular conditions of documenting and telling the history of Black American theater hold unique challenges. So, what conditions of the slave trade would have made it difficult to find origins for African American theater? To answer that question, first, let's ask one, or a couple. What do you need for history? Well, you need documents, you need archives, you need legacies, connections, oral histories, storytelling. Slaves, as we know, were separated from their countries, from their families, and thus from their own origins. As Professor Johnson just pointed out a few minutes ago, even when there were records, they were inaccurate and limited. Thus, it's understandably difficult to find definitive origins for Black American theater. Because of the way the slave trade functions, in stripping a culture of its history as much as possible and leaving it without the means or freedom to express, for the most part, in any sort of public way, and certainly not in ways that could be recorded for historical purposes, the usual documentation and archives that serve as the raw material of written histories were lacking when they existed at all.
Mr. Samuel Edu-Chimfi from the Department of Culture and Tourism interacted with Tech TV.
We have had some levels of interaction with the Ramapo College, and this morning throughout to this afternoon we've had engagements to discuss issues of slavery and how that has impacted relations among Africans in the diaspora, especially Africans in America and also Africans outside of the Americas. The three presenters whom we have engaged this morning have been able to take us through the labyrinth of history since colonization, the exodus of Africans through forced migration to the Americas and also to elsewhere, and how they have used the Africans to build the American economy. The dialogue then proceeds to look at the issues of color complex, that racism, as we speak today, continues to be a pivotal issue in America because it has been systematized.
Dr. Peter Campbell spoke to Tech TV News.
Spoke today about some early African-American theater traditions, including a theater company known as the African Theater, although of course it wasn't African, it was African-American, that was formed in the 1820s. The conference today was about the legacies of slavery and racism in the United States, and how those might relate to contemporary concerns both in the United States and in Africa.
Tech TV News interviewed Dr. Deidra Foreman.
We decided that we wanted to provide an opportunity for students from Ramapo College and students here from KNUST University to come together and learn about the topic of slavery in the African diaspora and culture, to also engage in the process of learning about the topic and sharing ideas, and to also give students an opportunity to meet each other and to talk amongst each other and to ask questions, to be more curious about what it means to live in a slave society, to try to have a fundamental understanding of the history.
Dr. Kyle Johnson spoke to Tech TV News.
And we had a very good academic discussion, and the topic that I covered was slavery in the African diaspora and how it built America. I gave a number of examples of what happened to the people that were enslaved, how things happened to them both psychologically and physically, so much so that they did not even want to accept their own African ancestry. And also I showed how the labor from slaves ended up building America, along with Native American land being taken.
Some students interacted with Tech TV News.
I think so far I've learned that African immigrants have a very strong footing in terms of competing with other races in the world. And then I think that there will be a time that racism will be a thing of the past. And then with Africans coming together to fight for a common goal, I think we are going to make a progress. I think this conference has been very helpful to us.
Tech TV. Experience educational television.